Welcome back to the Book Nook. So today we're diving deep into Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon.
Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah, 10 things nobody told you about being creative. And you shared this book with me a while back.
Yeah.
And I was really struck by, you're looking for those very specific, like hands-on
What you
ways
said.
to bring more creativity into your everyday life.
Yeah.
Not just sort of big picture concepts, but things you can actually do.
Yeah, totally.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to really unpack, the most insightful, immediately applicable ideas from this book.
Right.
I think that's what's so great about Kleon. He
Yeah.
takes this whole idea of being creative, which can feel kind of
Mystifying.
mystifying and overwhelming sometimes, and he
Yeah.
makes it feel accessible
Yeah.
and actually doable.
Yeah, I think that's totally his appeal. It's like he's talking to a past version of himself, right? Sharing the things he's learned as an artist over the last decade or so. And the core of it really comes down to this idea that all creative work builds on what came before. As Picasso famously said,
Oh, yeah.
art is theft.
That's a good one.
But Kleon clarifies,
Yeah.
and T.S. Eliot does too, actually, that it's about good theft, right? It's about taking inspiration and making it your own, transforming it into something new and unique.
Right. And that's really what we're talking about today. And he jumps right into that, actually, in the very first chapter, Steal Like an Artist. Now, when you first hear that, it can sound a little, I don't know, maybe a little shady, like you're just supposed to be ripping people off.
Yeah,
But that's not what he means at all, right?
not at all. He's really emphasizing that artists are collectors, not hoarders.
Yeah.
It's not about just grabbing everything you see, right? It's about selectively gathering the things that truly speak to
Yeah,
you.
like a curator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a curator.
Yeah.
So the first actionable step, he suggests, flows directly from that. It's to actively look at the world with this eye of a collector,
Yeah.
constantly searching for those things that are, I guess,
Worth stealing?
worth stealing. He even quotes David Bowie, who said he only studied art that he could steal from,
Yeah.
which kind of reframes the whole way you think about it, right? You're not just evaluating art as good or bad.
Right.
You're looking at its potential to spark something within you.
Totally. Yeah. It makes you think differently about everything you encounter, right? You start asking yourself, like, okay, what is it about this that makes it so
Right.
worth stealing?
What's that spark?
Yeah. What's the spark?
Yeah. I think understanding why something resonates is key to transforming that influence into something that's genuinely yours.
Right. Right.
And Jonathan Lethem, he adds an interesting layer to this in his essay,
Yeah.
The Ecstasy of Influence. He points out that what we often perceive as originality can simply be a lack of awareness of the original sources. So embracing influence rather than shying away from it can be incredibly freeing.
So for you, the listener, if you're like, okay, this idea of steal like an artist
Yeah.
sounds interesting, but how do I actually put that into action? What's like the first step?
Yeah, I think the first thing you can do
Yeah.
is start a swipe file. Think of it as your treasure chest.
Yeah, a little inspiration bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Your inspiration bank.
Yeah.
It could be a physical scrapbook, a digital folder, Pinterest board, whatever works for you, right?
Totally.
But the key is to actively collect things that inspire you. Images, quotes, interesting textures,
Yeah.
snippets of conversations, anything that catches your eye.
And it's not enough to just like collect it, right? You have to actually engage with it.
Engage with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Make it a habit to revisit your swipe file, especially when you're feeling stuck
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
starting a new project. It's like a resource to prime your creative pump,
Yeah.
I love this Mark Twain quote. He says, it's better to take what doesn't belong to you than to let it lie around neglected. Your swipe file is where all those neglected sparks can be reignited.
That's great. All right. So let's move on to point number 2.
Yeah.
Which is don't wait until you know who you are to get started.
Right?
And this feels like a direct challenge to, that feeling of like, oh, I need to have everything figured out
Yeah.
before I can even begin.
Totally. He argues that we figure out who we are in the act of making things, right? It's not something you discover beforehand.
Yeah.
It's like we find our voice by using it.
Yeah.
So waiting for that grand revelation of like, oh, this is who I am as an artist is often just a form of procrastination. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like putting it on. And I love how he connects this back to Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and the idea of fake it till you make it.
He also talks about imposter syndrome, too, which I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. That feeling of like, I'm just faking it and someone's going to find out. But, Cleon offers a really reassuring perspective on that. He says it's actually super common, especially among people who are doing innovative work,
Yeah, yeah.
because you kind of are figuring things out as you go. I mean,
Oh,
it's the nature of creative work, right?
right. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, I'm not ready to start that project
Right on.
because I don't feel qualified, what's his advice?
Well, I think he would tell you to identify one small project
Yeah.
that you've been putting off. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece, right?
Right.
But set a timer, maybe for 15, 20 minutes, and just force yourself to work on it. The goal isn't the outcome. It's just to break through that
Inertia.
That inertia, exactly.
Okay, so moving on to point number 3, which is write the book you want to read. And, we sort of touched on this earlier, but this applies way beyond just writing, right?
Absolutely. The idea is to create what you want to experience rather than trying to guess what might be popular or what other people want.
Yeah.
Make the kind of work that you would love to see or hear or interact with.
Right. And he gives some great examples of this, like Brian Eno creating music that didn't exist but that he wanted to hear, or Bradford Cox from Deer Hunter making like fake versions of albums he was looking forward to.
Totally. And it really underscores the power of your own genuine interests as a driving force, right? Like when you're making something that you're excited about, that passion just comes through.
Yeah. So the actionable advice here is, like, use that personal desire as your creative.
Totally. Think about the books, the music, the art, even products that you really love.
Yeah.
What is it about them that resonates with you? What's missing? What could be even better? And then start working on creating that.
Start working on creating that, yeah. Let your own tastes be your guide. All right, so point number 4 is use your hands. And, in our increasingly digital world, this can feel like kind of a radical suggestion.
Yeah, we do everything on screens.
But Cleon's point is that our over-reliance on computers can actually create this distance between us and our work. And he quotes Stanley Donwood, who talks about that sheet of glass that separates you from your creation when you're working digitally.
And you lose that tactile connection.
Yeah, you lose that tactile connection. And he really emphasizes the connection between our bodies and our minds, right?
Yeah.
Like engaging our bodies can actually spark new ideas.
Absolutely. There's a real feedback loop there.
Yeah.
Physical activity can stimulate new neural pathways and lead to insights that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah. Kleon actually shares a really personal anecdote about this. He talks about how returning to using analog tools like newspapers and markers kind of reignited his love for writing poetry. And he actually has 2 distinct workspaces now. One analog for brainstorming and idea generation, and one digital
Interesting.
for editing and publishing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really practical approach. So for the listener, what's something tangible they can do to kind of reconnect with that physical side of creativity?
Yeah, I think the key is to set aside dedicated time for creating something using only those analog tools, right?
Right.
So whether that's sketching, journaling with pen and paper, building with Legos, knitting, whatever, just something that involves that physical engagement, and pay attention to how that changes your thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like how it affects the way you approach the creative process.
Absolutely. Even setting up like a little analog corner in your space could be beneficial.
Totally. So point number 5 is all about side projects and hobbies are important. And these are often the things that kind of fall by the wayside when we get busy, but Cleon's arguing that they're actually vital.
He makes a really compelling point about how those side projects, the things we do just for the love of it, often end up being the most fruitful in the long run.
Yeah.
And I love how he encourages having multiple projects going at once.
Yeah.
So you can bounce between them and practice what he calls productive procrastination.
Yeah. I mean, that resonates with me so much. Like, sometimes you just need to switch gears.
Totally.
And that can actually...
It can feed the other project.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And he makes a really interesting case for boredom, too, which is something that I think a lot of us try to avoid.
Avoid at all costs.
At all costs, yeah.
But he says boredom is actually crucial for creativity.
He quotes Meryl Kullman, who says, avoiding work is the way to focus my mind, which...
Right. It seems so counterintuitive.
Yeah, it seems totally counterintuitive, but like when we're not constantly stimulated, our minds can wander.
Right.
And make those unexpected connections.
Right.
It's
like creating the space for those new ideas to emerge.
Totally.
Yeah. And I love how he also mentions Stephen Tomlinson's advice
Yeah.
about keeping all your passions in your life, and letting them talk to each other.
Yeah.
Kleon himself, he talks about how returning to music after a while
Yeah.
really enriched his writing.
Yeah.
So it's like cross-pollination.
Yeah. Totally. So the actionable takeaway here is like really nurture those side projects and hobbies.
Absolutely. So revisit that hobby you've neglected or consider starting a new one
Yeah.
purely for the enjoyment of it.
Mhm.
Schedule some dedicated time for it. It doesn't have to be a huge block of time.
Right.
Even short intervals can make a big difference. And don't worry about it being productive in the
Right.
traditional sense.
All about that joy, right?
The act of engaging with your passions, just for the love of it, can really fuel your creativity.
Yeah, totally. All right, so point number 6 is all about sharing your work. It's called The Secret. Do good work and share it with people. And it sounds deceptively simple, right?
It does, but it's profound.
Yeah, I think Cleon believes that that's the real formula for getting your work seen. It's doing the work and then sharing it.
Right. And in today's digital age, he says, put your stuff on the internet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So he talks about the secret of the internet, which is that
Right.
it's not really a secret at all.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about connecting with other people.
Genuine human connection.
Yeah, and he has this 2-step approach, which is to wonder at something
Yeah,
and then invite others to wonder with you.
yeah. It's not about algorithms. It's about sharing your genuine passions and curiosities.
Right, and he gives the examples of Bob Ross and Martha Stewart, who built these huge audiences by just being really generous
Yeah.
with their knowledge and their enthusiasm.
Right. They gave their secrets away.
Exactly, they gave their secrets away. And then he also makes the point that sharing your work online can actually help you grow as a creator.
It becomes an incubator for ideas.
Yeah, you put it out there,
Right.
and then you get feedback, you get new perspectives,
Right. Even in the early stages.
even in the early stages. So if you're listening and you're hesitant to put your work out there, what's a good first step to take?
I think a great first step is just to identify one piece of work. Even if it's something you're still working on
Yeah.
that you could share online. It could be a sketch, a short piece of writing, a photo of a project. Choose a platform where you feel comfortable and just share it. See what happens.
See it happens, yeah. All right, so point number 7 is a little bit counterintuitive. It's called Be Boring. It's the only way to get work done.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's funny because he's really challenging this romanticized idea
Right.
of the, like, chaotic, creative genius.
Right, like the tortured artist, right?
Yeah, the tortured artist who's just, like, living this crazy life
Yeah.
and somehow producing brilliant work.
But he argues that it's actually the opposite, right?
Yeah, he's saying, like, creativity takes energy.
Right.
And if you're wasting that energy on drama and chaos, you're not going to have it for your work.
He quotes Gustave Flaubert, who said, "Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work."
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And he also makes a point about the value of a day job,
Yeah.
which is often underestimated.
Yeah. A lot of people think like, oh, if I could just quit my job and be a full-time
Right.
artist, you know?
But he says that a day job provides structure, routine, and, most importantly, financial stability,
Yeah.
which frees you up to be creative.
Totally.
He really emphasizes the importance of having a routine for your creative work,
Yeah.
even if it's just for a small amount of time each day.
Yeah.
Like, inertia is the enemy.
Right. So like build those habits.
Right. Build those habits.
Yeah. He also talks about Jerry Seinfeld's chain method,
Oh, yeah.
which is super simple, but really effective.
So simple, yeah. You get a calendar and mark X on every day.
Yeah.
You dedicate time to your creative work. And then the goal is just not to break the chain.
Yeah. It's so visual, right?
It's so visual, yeah.
You see that progress.
You see the momentum building. And he also suggests keeping a logbook,
Yeah.
which is just a simple record of your daily activities,
Mm-hmm.
just to track your progress.
So for those listening who are looking for that consistency in their creative practice,
Yeah.
what are some of those actionable steps they can take?
So the first thing is to identify that small, realistic time slot in your day where you can do your work.
Yeah.
Get yourself a calendar, start your chain,
Mhm.
and consider starting a logbook, even if it's just a simple notebook.
Yeah.
It's all about building those small habits
Yeah.
that compound over time.
Totally. Okay, so the final point for today is creativity is subtraction. And in this world where we're just bombarded with
Yeah.
information and possibilities,
Right.
this feels especially relevant, I think.
Totally. He's making the point that being able to figure out what to leave out
Yeah.
is just as important as what to include.
Right.
It's like limitless options can actually be paralyzing.
Right. Yeah.
So he suggests that we impose constraints on our work,
Hmm.
and paradoxically, that can lead to more focus and innovation.
Yeah, I love that. So he gives some examples like writing a song during your lunch break,
Right.
or, Dr. Seuss writing The Cat in the Hat using this very limited vocabulary.
That's a great example.
Yeah,
It's amazing what limitations can do.
it really forces you to think
Yeah.
outside the box, Ree.
It forces you to be resourceful. Saul Steinberg, he said that we actually respond most strongly to an artist's struggle against their limitations, which I think is really powerful.
It's often those choices of what not to do
Right.
that make the work more interesting.
Right.
So for our listeners, the final actionable takeaway here is really about experimenting with those limitations.
Absolutely. So with your next project, try imposing some kind of constraint. It could be a time limit, a limited set of materials, a specific theme, anything like that.
Yeah.
Just see how that limitation actually influences your process and the end result.
Yeah, because you might be surprised at how creative you can get
Right.
when you have those boundaries.
You have to work within those boundaries.
So really, Still Like an Artist comes down to a very practical and encouraging approach to creativity, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's not about waiting for inspiration to magically strike.
Yeah.
It's about actively engaging with the world, embracing those influences, starting before you feel ready, and putting in the work consistently.
Yeah, and often within those
Limitations.
limitations, right?
Yeah.
So the key takeaways for you, the listener, are to start that small project that you've been putting off. Start collecting inspiration.
Yeah.
Get hands-on with those analog tools.
Yeah.
Really nurture those passions through side projects. Share your work, share your journey.
Yeah.
Build a consistent routine.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to experiment with those limitations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these are all things that you can start doing today.
Exactly. Yeah. So we really hope that this deep dive has given you some tools
Yeah.
and maybe a renewed sense of possibility when it comes to your own creative endeavors.
Absolutely.
What resonated most with you today? What's that one thing you're going to try? We highly recommend checking out Still Like an Artist.
Yeah. Great book.
For yourself, and maybe check out the books he recommends too.
Totally. There's a great list in there.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We will be back soon with another exploration.
Now that we've been talking about the power of constraints and creativity, what's one area of your life where imposing a deliberate limitation might actually lead to greater freedom or innovation? Think about that.
See you next time.